post. Only public posts will appear in a hashtag search across all social media. So it couldn't be if you were doing it in a private group or a group that does not allow other people to see the postings. Also, if you had your, say on Facebook, for example, you have your settings set to just friends or, more of a private public, for your privacy, and you use hashtags, it will not be found in a search. So for marketing purposes, we want to make sure we're putting those on a public post.
Makes absolute sense there. And I like being able to sort by topics. Google does searching by word on that, and this way we can define our topics that we want to be found for across that whole spectrum, which is really interesting because it's much more than just a word. It's a topic. It's a subject matter for discussion, and it's how we think more than just a word.
Yeah, exactly right. You're I should say precisely right, because when using hashtags properly, what you are doing is you're providing a great way for individuals and brands to make those social media posts more visible and increase engagement. So they can actually, and this is why you really want to use them, and why you have to be using them if you have a strategy to gaining a bigger reach with your postings, especially, with the way all these algorithms work on all the social platforms anymore. We have to really find ways around that so that we are seen by more people. And again, when we put information out on social media, we are wanting it to gain a momentum, to reach people that don't yet know us, so that we have a better opportunity to have more conversations. So again, you want to make sure, as I said, that you really focus on what it is that's going to target your ideal market with the type of hashtag you put together. And we're going to talk more about do's and don'ts of hashtags,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm just trying.
So what you're saying is this. I know, like in Facebook, the reach that you get on a post is not what it was a few years ago. It's what, 5% maybe?
2% on your Facebook page. 2%. Yeah. That's about it.
About all the people that are going to see it.
Yeah.
So I may have 400 plus people on my page, but if I'm looking at 2%, I'm looking maybe 8 people. Are you kidding me?
So we really want to make sure that, again, everything that we focus on when we're doing, helping our clients with their strategy, with their marketing plan, social media marketing plan, or anything that they're doing, we're really focusing on what is going to help them reach their target market. And that's when the hashtags are coming in certain postings. And we're going to talk about, how many should we use in a post? Should we use them on every post, et cetera? We're going to, again, share some do's and don'ts here today before we finish our conversation. But I really, to kind of give examples so people that are not familiar, they probably see them, but they're not really familiar why they're being used. It really, you have to think and wrap your head around that hashtags are often used to, as I guess you could say, unite conversations around certain, as we said, topics, or like events. How many times we use a hashtag Super Bowl, or when the Olympics were on a few years ago, hashtag what, Rio, is that where it was?
Yep,
Yeah, Brazil.
yep.
Rio 2016. We're always looking, and what happens when you're using that in your message, you're going to be then placed in an area where other people are using those hashtags too. And so when someone searches for that topic, and it doesn't always have to necessarily be, and they search within the search bar on those social media platforms, they all have them, and they don't even have to necessarily even use the hashtag. They can just put that term in there, and it will actually bring up a lot of different things like postings or pages or groups, events, etc., with these type of search terms. remember, unfortunately, we just had the anniversary of the Pulse shooting a year ago. Everyone was hashtag pray for Orlando. That was a real big one that really pulled together a lot of healing and a lot of, good conversation that people could just really come together and start talking and sharing. So again, holidays, celebrations, what is the one
I mean, we're coming up on the holiday season, so get used to it now.
What would be a good one for the holidays?
You could be, doing holiday wishes on that from your particular site. Now, that may not drive them totally back to you, but you could come up with happy holidays and then put your name in there, first name, last name, or something to create a little bit of a unique character for yourself. So, if you're on your business page, it might be like us, hashtag Happy Holidays WCN.
Well, there's actually a tool that you can use if you want to see if a hashtag will work for you. I'm going to share a couple tools today, but one of them is one called Right Tag, and that's RITETAG. So righttag.com, ritetag.com. And basically what it does, it is a tool that you can put in a hashtag, and it will show you whether or not your hashtag is a good hashtag to use. Maybe it's not being used that often, so they'll say, oh, that one's not really viewed too often. That would be not a good one. Or perhaps you're using one that is being used often. Like with holidays coming up, a lot of them will be putting hashtag Small Business Saturday. So that might be an overused one. So this tool, Right Tag, will let you know, hey, that hashtag's being used a lot. Here are some other suggestions that would still get you in a stream of conversation that people are looking for that topic, and they give you ideas and suggestions. So it is a phenomenal tool to use. It's free too.
I like free. That works with me.
Yeah, exactly. It just really helps you improve your own use of hashtags, and also giving you, like I said, that statistic insight to what popular hashtags to use and which ones not to use. So, and I always also, when we're on that, thinking about how to use and what hashtags to use, whenever I come up with one, I will actually go do a search on the social platforms to see what is being talked about underneath that tag, because it may not be real appropriate, because other people might use it inappropriately, and you're going to be in that mix of conversation, and you may not want to be. It could be offensive. So if people found you there, so you have to really understand before using a specific hashtag why you should or shouldn't you be using it. Does that make sense?
No, makes total sense. Yeah, that's just protecting your brand reputation. On doing your due diligence in there.
Yeah, I mean, and we've probably seen many times, especially with different themes on specific days, during the week or whatever. The Throwback Thursday, a popular hashtag is hashtag TBT, motivational Monday, hashtag Tuesday Tip Day or something like that. People use specific type of hashtags again on their postings, and I want to kind of get in and talk a little bit about how to use these hashtags on, like Facebook, not LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and how you can decide whether or not maybe you're using them too much or maybe you shouldn't be using them on certain posts as well. So again, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook are the top social sites that, as I mentioned, hashtags are used on. We remind you, we don't recommend that you use it on LinkedIn, again, because it may not resonate with your connections and might make you look bad. And
no, LinkedIn is trying to be a corporate type of site where people come together for pure business. It's not that you can't use hashtags for business. It's just they're more about the connecting one-on-one than they are on hashtags per se.
Exactly. And with Twitter as, we'll start with there, since that's where they were kind of introduced, even though they didn't start on there. And that, like I said, that was really an insight for me. I had just assumed, because I'm thinking social media, that hashtags just started there on Twitter, but they were introduced on Twitter around 2007. And when they are in a tweet, you can actually click on them, a hashtag, and it does take you to that stream of conversation, so that you can understand and see it better. Also, when you are putting a post together, we all know on Twitter it's a short conversation. It's a short post.
Twitter's very short on that, but it is the one, like we said earlier, that is most user friendly for doing that type of stuff. So hashtags are clickable on Twitter, so they're also, you can use them to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. And you do still need to, and it's kind of changed over the years, and we have to remember that social media is continually evolving, and there are always changes happening. When we first started using Twitter back in around 2007, 2008, everyone was using gobs and gobs of hashtags.
Mm-hmm.
And now Twitter best practices recommend that you really don't use any more than 2 hashtags in a single tweet.
Well, even 2 is a tremendous amount. I mean, we'll go with their recommendation, but you've only got 140 characters, so you don't have a lot to deal with in the first place, and 15 of them are reserved for retweets, so that brings you down even more. Mm-hmm. So you have to actually use your hashtag and think of it as just a single character and get it in front of your keyword.
Exactly, and that's what you're doing, is you're putting a word within that message on Twitter, and by putting the hashtag in front of it, because you can get by on Twitter actually using the hashtags in the message, whereas on Facebook you want to use them, and even on Instagram you want to use them after the message. You don't want to put them as part of the conversation. But Twitter, because you're so limited, you can get away with that. And you also want to make sure that you are using at least one hashtag in all your tweets.
Question. And I don't know the answer to this question, so we'll go wherever this takes us.
I hope I do. If not, hopefully somebody else
Can
will.
I put a hashtag in front of HTTP : and a URL?
No.
Cannot do it in front of a web address.
Well, for one reason, you cannot use symbols in a hashtag. It has to be letters. So, or numbers. But if you just did one for a number, it wouldn't show up. But if you did a number with some letters, then it would. So again, it's a practice.
Just a thought that came through my mind.
But and here's why you really wouldn't even need to do that. When you're putting a web address or what they call the Twitter handle with the @ sign, or an @ sign on even Facebook if you're using a hyperlink to a page or whatever, or you're using a web domain going to a website, they're already hyperlinked, so they're already clickable. So you would.
There you go. There's the answer, folks.
You wouldn't need to. But anyway, I thought you were going to really stump me here today, Richard, because we're always learning, and I'm the first.
I can't stump the social media queen.
Well, I'm the first to admit that I'm constantly researching, because it does change all the time. I mean, I am still one to use sometimes more than 2 in my tweets, and I have to be very careful with that, because I want to make sure I'm doing the best practices that are being acceptable today, and making sure that my message is getting read, because the whole purpose of using these hashtags is you want to improve what we call readability of your messages, and also getting a greater reach and engagement. But here's a tip on hashtags too that you might want to consider, especially if you're using, not necessarily if you're using a single word, but if you're using a group of words, even if it's just 2, you might want to do what they call camel case, where you're actually capitalizing the first letter of each word, still not putting any spaces between it, but like with content marketing. If I said hashtag content marketing,
so it'd be hashtag capital C for content, capital M for marketing.
Precisely. And that way, people, when they look at it, they can actually read it. Because, and I'll give this is a do not do. I mean, there are so many people that make up these long hashtags, and they're all lowercase. And it's like a complete sentence. And